Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show here on, was it Tuesday the 24th of November at 8 p.m. And thank you to everyone who's watching the recording. Don't forget that we are here at 8 p.m. every single Tuesday, and you can also listen to us as a podcast as well. Just head over to your favorite podcatcher, Acast or iTunes, something like that, and search for New Zealand Sports Radio, and you'll find us there with our daily shows. So do head over to that if you like to listen on the go rather than just watch. And what are we going to talk about, or am I going to talk about? Because it looks like I have been stood up this evening and I'm on my own. So we're going to have a quick look at a 15 that the legendary Marty Banks Facebook page put up. And this is a 15 of my 10 Cup players who don't have Super Rugby contracts. We'll also have a look at the Moana Pacifica side that is set to play against the Maori All Blacks at when is that? It's 5th of December, I think it is. As well, and that Maori All Blacks side is supposed to be announced about half the way through this show, so we may or may not have a look at the Maori All Blacks side as well. Also, a topic that Stephen Harris will never chat about, even though he's not here, was looking at the game time that some of the All Blacks in the squad have been given. There are 3 All Blacks who are on tour at the moment who have played 0 minutes of 0 minutes of game time. So a bit of a question mark. Did they really need to take all those players on tour? Would those players have been better off back home playing in the Mitre 10 Cup? We'll have a chat about that as well. So those are the main topics of the evening. If there are any other topics that you would like, if you're watching us live, that you would like us to talk about, then please throw them in the live chat. If there are topics you would like us to cover next week, then again, you can send me a tweet or direct message me on Twitter if you want to, at DrivingMaul, or you can head over to Patreon at patreon.com/NZ Sports Radio, and you'll be able to send me a message through that system as well if you want to. So, as I say, send us your questions for next week. Always love to know what you guys would like us to talk about. So let's crack in then and have a look at some of these this Mitre 10 Cup or 15 that's been put together by the legendary Marty Banks Facebook page. A real funny page, doing a lot of good work. And yes, this kind of comes into this whole Super Rugby signings side of things. Most of the news we've had recently, in all honesty, has been about signings for or from the Chiefs, so. But we'll have a look at some of these players that Jesse Wood over on the Legend of Marty Banks has put up there. Look at there, Jared Adams, yep, for Auckland, the prop there. And yeah, when we have a look at the some of the props that are available through Moana Pacifica, I think you'll see actually there's some quite good props around. But Jordan Olsen, you've got to say, really unlucky at the moment. There is a fantastic crop of hookers at the moment in New Zealand rugby. But he has been playing captain for that, or he's the captain for that Northern side, who have got themselves their first ever final. This is the first time ever that they've actually the semi-final is the first time they've ever won a semi-final or a playoff or a finals game. So you've got to say he's doing a good job up there in Northland. Up there, Josh Holneck with Otago. Again, Otago perhaps coming up a little bit short in what they're hoping for, but still a good season. A couple of players here in Samuel Slade and also Jason Robertson. Counties Manukau had a bit of a tough old season, let's be honest. So to shine under that situation is kind of a bit of a problem. And Nocturnal Right says, are you running the bath ball? No, I'm not. So I'll give you a quick sneak preview, quick sneak behind the scenes view here. So it all looks kind of flashed like that, doesn't it? If I turn sideways, you'll see that actually I'm in my garage. And that means that I have a tin roof that does not, as you can see, have any lining. So what that means is that, yeah, you can hear the rain that is coming down here in Waihi. It has been a wet and cold day today here in Waihi. And I'm sorry, but that's what you can hear in the background. Not much I can do about that, I'm afraid. I will be looking at putting some soundproofing in and some insulation in. That should hopefully help with that situation. But here we go. A man riding in to the rescue. We have Stephen Harris joining us. How are you doing, sir? Oops, no, he's just removed his headphones and he's running off. Fantastic. What brilliant timing there. So I'll wait for Stephen to come back and have a chat with us. But yes, sorry about the noise, folks. That's I say we are at the early stages of the renovations here in Waihi at some New Zealand Sport Radio HQ. And if you are a member, a supporter of New Zealand of NZ Sport Radio through on Patreon, you'll see that I do produce. I'm giving people behind the curtains views, which is going through the renovations that I'm doing here. Also looks at New Zealand Sport Radio as a business, shows you all the income out and all the costs that I have, and yeah, just runs through that kind of stuff. So if you want to become a supporter, you can do for as little as $1 a month. It really is a great deal, and I also do opinion videos for those people as well. So we'll just wait for Stephen to put his headphones on, and we'll go. But we're looking at this. This list from the legend of Marty Banks. Xavier Rowe, playing for Waikato, has, let's be honest, been rumoured to have been given a role at the Chiefs next season, which I think was a little bit of surprise considering they've already got Brad Weber and Triple T on the books, but a good reward for him. I'll just bring in Stephen now, because it looks like he's got his headphones on, and he's now joining us. I've been running off there.
Oh, good evening, Paul. I can hear rain on the roof by the sound of things.
Yes, I'm afraid so. And yeah, Nocturnal Right says, yes, Stephen is turning his bathtub off, because he reckons only a bath here, and that's what's causing all the noise. So yeah, you might find it goes quiet from time to time when I'm muting my microphone, so we can hear hear what he has to say. But we're looking at the legend of Marty Banks 15 here, Stephen, and a guy you've been talking about over the last couple of weeks is Jordan Olsen, and the fact that he hasn't got a Super Rugby contract currently.
Yeah, just a little bit unlucky. I think there's so many good hookers running around in the competition. Paul, it's just one of those things, but he is playing some really good rugby at the minute, and yeah, just I suppose you never know. He might pick up a wider training squad contract, but he has played international rugby for Canada, so that could be something that could be holding him back as well as an overseas player. Very, very similar circumstances to Tony Lambourne.
Well, I was about to say that, there's a couple of names on here that have played international rugby, say Olsen for Canada, Tony Lambourne for the USA. And one of the problems that those players have is that Super Rugby sides only have, I think it's 2 players they're allowed to have that are not New Zealand qualified in their squads. And because of that, obviously, they have to be rather judicious with that. And if they can find a New Zealand player who is, nearly as good or as good as an overseas player, they'll choose that New Zealand player because that leaves them space to have that foreign player elsewhere. So yeah, I think Olsen and Lambourne, for that reason, both could have a bit of a problem. As Aaron says, the Blues need a good hooker, so maybe the reason for not re-signing Tony Lambourne is the fact they can now sign Jordan Olsen instead there for the Blues. But we'll have to wait and see what will happen. Another point that has been made on this thread on the Legend of Marty Banks site or page is that historically, the Minor 10 Cup team will be put together by the best club players. Now, Minor 10 Cup players, quite a lot of them have multi-year contracts, and so there are only so many spaces up for grabs each season. And the same applies for the Super Rugby teams, is that they're not all on one-year contracts. Some of the players clearly are on multi-year contracts, and therefore a good player can come along, but because they've already got 3 hookers signed or three halfbacks signed, there isn't space for a player to be picked up, and that's where I think Xavier Rowe's got a bit. That's why I'm surprised Xavier Rowe didn't go to the Hurricanes.
I think he has, Paul. I think he actually has been picked up by the Hurricanes in recent days.
Okay, because the rumours on stuff were that he'd been picked up by the Chiefs.
Wow.
And that Milo Harris basically has been dropped to make way for him, which I say with Brad Weber and Triple T at the Chiefs, you got to say Xavier Rowe isn't probably going to get that much game time, I wouldn't have thought, at the Chiefs, but it is his hometown. He is a Waikato player, so you can understand why he might want to sign here. But you'd think he would have more opportunities down at the Hurricanes with TJ Perinara going off to Japan for a year, and also I've gone blank, the Manawa 2 captain, who's gone and picked up a serious injury there as well. So yeah, the Hurricanes definitely needing to find at least 1, if not 2, scrum halves. We have problems hearing me, Stephen?
Yeah, Paul. I was about to say, Xavier Rowe. You'd be hoping that he'd been picked up by the Hurricanes. I'll check on that as hopefully Boyle will join us a little bit later in the show, but I'll check on that as well. I looked through a lot of those names. There's actually some really, really good young, promising guys. But just before we get away from the hookers, I know there's the boy Talai, who plays for North Harbour, who I understand hasn't got a contract either. So there's a couple of decent hookers running around in the Blues franchise, Paul.
Yeah, there are. I mean, look, there's some decent players in the Blues franchise. Let's be honest. We've got Northland, who have made it to the final. Auckland are in the final, and Northland also, whilst they've been relegated from the Premiership, they put in some good wins over Tasman and other teams as well. So, look, there's some quality players there in the Blues franchise area, it's I guess the problem is that you can't sign all of them. You can't have 3 teams worth of players all at the Blues. So I guess that's part of the problem that the Blues have. But yeah, there are some decent players there, definitely. Simon Hughes makes a point. Tony Lambourne and Jordan Olsen could go and play in Major League Rugby. They could, absolutely, but obviously Super Rugby is a higher level for them to prepare for international, and also that you get paid more as well. The salaries in Major League Rugby, whilst they're improving, still have got a long way to go to catch up with the other leagues, and also the quality of play isn't the same. Let's be honest. Freedom I think might be in a training squad down in the Highlanders, so hopefully he'll be looking at trying to do well down there. The number 12 here that they haven't included, I put the Hawke's Bay Fuami, but I thought there was also I've gone blank as to I was going to say Trask, but I know it's not. There's another young guy down there that hasn't been picked up by the Hurricanes. I thought might also have got being picked up. I've gone blank as his name now. Never mind.
Paul, I was about to say, interestingly enough, I think normally Danny Tawala would be playing second 5 for Hawke's Bay, but he's been injured. So the likes of Nerai Formai, he's normally a winger, has moved into second 5 for Hawke's Bay. I don't know if he's quite done enough to secure a place as a midfielder just yet. At this point in time, he's very much a fill-in at this stage, a little bit like the winger that's playing for Auckland at the moment at second 5. That just escapes my name as well. Maybe is that Talia?
Talia, yep, he's also been playing there.
out,
as well.
out of position. But I've also heard in recent days, Jacob, the boy, and once again, Nocturnal Rights. I was about to read the name, but you've just got that Nocturnal Rights who's come up. That's Jacob Ratu Maitivuku Neepkins from Taranaki is being linked with the Blues at the moment. So there's a couple of guys here that may still pick up contracts. One of the young promising group that I like is TK Howden from Manawatu, in a team that struggled this year. He really, really impressed me. Did the blindside flanker, but I probably see him as maybe a Super Rugby player a year or two from now.
Jacob, from what I'm hearing on the grapevine, he's definitely got a Blues contract. So yes, that's the, so yeah, we'll see him at the Blues next season. Interestingly, there's going to be a space at the Chiefs because Solomon Alomalo is moving down to the Highlanders. A fantastic signing for the Highlanders. Alomalo, I think a move's going to be good for him. He got about, I reckon, 3 years ago now, he was probably being touted as being an All Black. Got injured, has had a couple of tough seasons, and I think perhaps a fresh start somewhere else might be the best thing for him. After his season kind of after his career has stalled a little bit. Aaron mentions AJ Lamb. I've not heard anything about him getting any Super Rugby contracts currently, to be honest. Have you heard anything around AJ Lamb?
I believe AJ Lamb's been signed by the Blues.
He is as well. Wow. So hang on. So how many wingers are the Blues picking up?
That's a good question. Well, I don't think they'll be re-signing Jordan Highland this year. And of course, if you got to remember, they signed Joe Marchant as a centre/winger last year. So yeah, they're probably a bit heavy in terms of outside backs. But I'm just trying to think who their current wingers are at the moment. And then you've got the likes of Rico Ioane, who they probably see more as a centre these days. Paul, so you've got Caleb Clark, if you want to bring up the Blue squad while I'm chatting away. Yeah, it's one of those interesting ones. Freedom Vahakalo, I'm really wrapped for him. Very, very good player out of Ponsonby here in Auckland. Very, very promising kid. Great story as well. Paul, not many people may know this, but he was struggling a few years ago. In fact, he was pretty much homeless. So it just goes to show with some good hard work, your circumstances can change relatively quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of these players, it is about getting the opportunity, isn't it, really? And once they get the opportunity, they do really well. So outside backs for the Blues at the moment, Caleb Clark, Matt Duffy, Jordan Highland, Amoni Nora, Jared Page, and Mark Talia.
Yeah, there you go. Both. Well, don't forget Matt Duffy's moved on. He's gone overseas as well. Jordan Highland, I'm not too sure will be picked up this year. Just one of those things. Jordan getting on in age this year, and also Jared Page is the sort of player that can slip into fullback. Although he did really well when he was on the wing for Harbour, especially earlier in the season.
Yeah. So with Duffy and Highland, perhaps I have got a couple of spaces to fill there with that one. In that kind of space, it's going to be interesting. I mean, in the centres, as you say, Rico Wani is now in there with TJ Fiani, Tanalea Talia, and Tamati Tua. So there's perhaps a bit of a space in there as well.
Yep. Just on Tamati Tua, he won't feature in Super Rugby in 2021. He's going in for shoulder surgery on the 5th of December, from what I understand. Although that could be extended if he makes the New Zealand Māori team that will play that one-off game against Moana Pacifica. But he's very much out of Super Rugby for the entire 2021 season.
So we go. Okay, so yeah, so a number of backs available then, or space in the backs. Obviously, Aaron is saying that the Blues still need a fullback. Yeah, I think they might see Stephen Perifetta back there with Terry Black in the 10 jersey, and Harry Plummer also might fill in the centres. He's played quite a bit at 12, hasn't he, for Auckland?
Yeah, I'm not totally convinced that as Plummer as a 12. Yeah, you've definitely got Perifeta. You've got Jared Page who can slip in there, and you've got Narawa, who I reckon could probably slip into that 15 jersey as well.
Yep, he does a bit of that for the I've gone blank for the Bay of Plenty. Looking at, the Chiefs. One of their problems is going to be is going to be a lock. I think Allardyce and Tyler Ardron both have moved on. But he's come in, and obviously they'll get Brady Retallick back. But maybe there's a space for a lock in there. I think they're probably well stocked at flanker. But with Cruden and Ty Falcon moving on, there's still, they've got Trask and Gatlin's moved there. But still perhaps room for another fly half at the Chiefs. So I think there's perhaps some spaces there for a couple of players.
Yeah, listen, Paul, I think Jason Robertson from Counties Monaco has done a really admirable job since he's moved into that pivot spot at Counties Monaco, taking over from Baden Kerr, who Counties bought back. And he ran the ship earlier in the season. But from what I've understood in recent times, Jason Robertson has signed with Major League Rugby. So unlikely to see Jason feature in Super Rugby as well.
Yep. Moving on then to the Hurricanes, with Jamie Booth's injury and say TJ Pirinar having overseas, we're a bit surprised that the rumours are that Xavier Rowe is going to the Chiefs, but the space definitely there for some players. The nocturnal rights, locked at a premium in New Zealand. You've got to say that's probably pretty true. With Ruben Love and Julian Surveyor joining as wings, having lost Ben Lam and Corbus Van Wyk, maybe they're a pretty. I think I look at probably a fairly settled side out of the Hurricanes, apart from that halfback slot, really. Into the Crusaders, Billy Harmond moving to the Highlanders, Fetuli Pia also moving to the Highlanders. With you got to say this again, pretty settled side, but maybe a couple of slots available. But you've got to say those are probably going to come out of the Canterbury and I've gone blank. Canterbury and Tasman. They generally don't like to go outside of those regions to pick up players, which means that maybe someone like Che Ficky for Canterbury might get a look in.
Yeah. He's. I see somebody like Che Fihaki as a wee bit of a development player for the Crusaders. Of course, boy, they're well stocked in wingers as well. Whaia Nuku, who was so impressive in the semi-final last week, and don't forget Leicester's got a brother as well. There's Timo and Leicester, Whaia Nuku. So man, there's plenty of firepower in terms of wingers. Just checked on that stuff news report. Yeah, Xavier Rowe definitely being linked with the Waikato Chiefs, not the Hurricanes, Paul. So he's set to get a call up from the Chiefs, which is good news for Xavier Rowe.
Yep, no, it is good news. I'm not sure how much time, how much game time we'll get with Triple T, and also Brad Weber being there. But hey, hopefully that'll be good. The Highlanders are the one where you've got to say there's lots of movement going on. They've already brought in Alamalo, Korai, and Milner Scudder into the outside back positions. I mentioned Pia from the Crusaders. They've also brought in number 8 Hino, the Japanese international, into number 8. Billy Harmon has moved down from the Crusaders, and Jeremy Ainsley has come over from the Rebels as well. So they've lost Dylan Hunt up to the Blues. Jesse Parate is going off to Japan, as is Rob Thompson. I think there's going to be quite a lot of change there in down at the Highlanders, and potentially. So it's going to be interesting to see what I think. Theirs is probably the most interesting squad announcement that we're going to see when the Super Rugby squads get announced.
Listen, Paul, Nocturnal Roach just mentioned Sam Kidd from Northland. It's a shame that he has signed with the New South Wales Waratahs, but I just kind of wonder the fact that he actually signed that contract may have something to do with why he's playing such good rugby. You know, you've got that super contract locked in with the Waratahs, and of course he's taken his opportunity since Timo Mayana Vanua has joined the should I say the ill-fated Fijian rugby team that's over with the Autumn Internationals at the moment. So it's a real shame for them, but that's left the door open for Sam Kidd, and he is playing some great rugby at the moment. I just think he's just one of those players. He was in the Blues development squad last year, is why he didn't get an opportunity at the Chiefs when the Chiefs were looking for locks. He's originally a Waikato boy, so it's one of those things, I guess, all about the timing.
Yeah, it is. And people like Will Tucker, for example, who got who got a short term thing down at the Highlanders. Why didn't he get a look in at the Chiefs? Again, another Waikato player. I've not heard much of him or from him this season. I'm not quite sure what's gone on there with him and why he's not played much in the Mitre 10 Cup. But yeah, so some players there who you think might get involved. So I'd say definitely look at that Highlanders squad is going to be kind of an interesting one to look at. Now, Stephen, we have a choice now. Do you want to go and talk about All Blacks players and having not played very much, or do you want to have a look at the Pacifica squad?
Oh, listen, I think I suppose Boa was going to join us this evening. He said he'd try and jump in halfway through, but I do want to talk about that the players that are getting very limited minutes in Australia. I find it very disappointed. I sort of tweeted a article that was on Stuff about the amount of minutes some players had received. Paul, hopefully you'll be able to post that. That's a snapshot of those minutes that some of the players have actually played virtually in the last 2 or 3 months or so. But it's not the greatest as we sort of go through all these players. Now, these are players that are all currently in Australia, and the three at the bottom were players that were added.
Well, let's just for those people listening to the podcast, the players we're going to be talking about here, and these players have had limited minutes are Asafo Miller, Will Jordan, Callum Grace, Peter Amanga Jensen, Brad Weber, Dalton Papali'i, Mitchell Dunshea, Duplessis Karifi, and George Bauer as well. So those are the players that all those players have had 21 minutes or less of game time during the of international game time in the last 3 months. So and those last three you're going to talk about as in Mitchell Dunshea, Duplessis Karifi, and George Bauer.
Yeah, really, really, really disappointing. I mean to say, those in the Mitre 10 squads that are playing back here in New Zealand, those guys are all important. I mean to say, George Bauer, important to that Otago team. Duplessis Karifi, we know what an influence he is when he's on the field playing for Wellington, and of course Mitchell Dunshea, sadly missed in the engine room for Canterbury, although admittedly Canterbury in those last 2 games of the season ironically beat the 2 teams that are playing off in the final this weekend. But once again, it just disappointed. I'd bet you dollars to donuts if you ask these guys if they've enjoyed what they've endured in Australia. I'd say they'd be pretty ticked about it. These are guys who want to play rugby. I find it just absolutely strange. Yes, I get the whole COVID thing, but sometimes I think you've just got to work with what you've got at times, and it just for me it just seems like they've got far too many players over there. And once again, you go through some of the guys that have already been over there. Dalton Papali'i, 13 minutes, seriously. To me, it's poor.
So Peter Amanga Jensen was brought in because of injuries for that Australia game in Auckland, and he played. I think he probably for 14 minutes, and he probably then should have been released back out of the squad once players had recovered. He's gone over to Australia, hasn't played any time. him, Offa Tuangafasi, who is obviously banned, and Karifi have all been sent home early. So Karifi it will not be picked, or is not available to be picked for this coming weekend's game against Argentina. So yes, there's that one. Aaron says, losses to Australia and Argentina most likely have influence on playing time. The loss to Australia, yes. The loss to Argentina, I mean, we've not had a game since then, so you can't react to that. I guess that was the kind of game. The loss to Australia, I agree, that Argentina was probably where players like Mitchell Dunshea probably should have been, and Karifi should have been on the bench to give them time. Unfortunately, but they went back to the first choice team for that one. Now, Nocturnal Rights makes the point that they could have picked a smaller squad and then call players up if there was no quarantine. To me, I get and I understand why George Bower is there as a prop. Okay, you can't replace props with other players. However, do you really need Karifi and Papilehi when you've also got Scott Barrett there who can play at 6? Do you need? Do you need? We've got 3. I mean, Cullen Grace, Dodge Papilehi, and Karifi. Between them, have played 16 minutes. You don't need 3 spare back row forwards. I get why Brad Webber's there. I get why Asafa Moa's there. You need 3 scrum halves. You need 3 hookers. But again, you didn't need all those 3 loose forwards. You probably didn't need Mitch Dunshea either, because Cullen Grace can step into the locking position if required. Whilst I get where he's coming from, I think they were overly conservative with the numbers they took.
Yeah, you take somebody like Dalton Papa Ali. I mean, to say he's a sort of guy that you can actually play at either 6 or 7 equally well, and probably at a pinch, I think he's big enough to probably move into number 8. Callum Grace can also come out of that 6 jersey and play at lock. So why the need for Mitchell Dunshea? It beggars belief. And once again, it's pretty much another poke at the Mitre 10 Cup. If you were really, really serious about giving the Mitre 10 Cup the respect that it's due, you'd leave as many of these guys still playing back here rugby in New Zealand.
Aaron asks, how many minutes did Akira play? Now, to be fair to Akira, it wasn't his fault. The reason he got pulled was because of the red card to Offa Tuangafasi. So I'm not sure how many minutes he played. I think he would have played 60 to 70 minutes. So I think he would have got a good chunk of game time. So I think even if he has only played 20 odd minutes, I still think that that Akira one is the exception to the rule. And if you are going to take big squads, yes, Nocturnal Rights bring back midweek games on tour. Then I absolutely agree. I think if you're going to take big squads, then play some sort of game that they can play.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a great idea.
I mean, on the bye weeks, they could easily have said, okay, what we're going to have is Australia A are going to play the All Blacks when the Wallabies and Pumas are playing, and when the All Blacks, just like when the All Blacks and the Wallabies played, the Pumas had a game against Australia A. So there was a team there they could have played in those, either as midweek games or even at the weekends when they've got bye weekends, rest weekends. That way, these players, as you can see, would have got some game time. You could have rotated players, definitely. Yeah, exactly. Right. So, yeah, there are plenty of Aussie selections because they're not playing the NRC. There isn't a competition at the moment that the Australians are playing because that's been cut, and hence why also the Fiji Drua aren't playing at the moment as well. So, yeah, as I say, I think between 3 and 4 of those players didn't need to be there. And they were probably about 3 to 4 players heavy on this squad, considering the games that they actually got to play. And Arshwin making Offa does owe does owe Akira a big thank you in one form or another. Anything else on this one, Stephen, or shall we move on to and have a look at the Pacifica squad?
Yeah, I think we should move on. I should move on too.
So a couple of things. I mean, we're going to talk about the actual squad itself, which I've just brought up here. But a couple of things to sort of note around this Pacifica team is that so far, just about every single announcement for this has come out of New Zealand Rugby. And I do believe from what certain murmurings I've heard on the grapevine that this has upset the other 5 Super Rugby franchises, and particularly the Blues Super Rugby, because obviously the talk is that this team will be playing in 2022 out of Mount Smart Stadium. Now, already the Blues, with the catchment area they've got, can't fill Eden Park, and putting another team in Auckland just means that they're going to lose support even more. So it is a bit questionable as to the location for this team from a financial point of view. I know a lot of people will say, oh, look, the largest Pacifica city in the world is Auckland, and South Auckland in particular. And yes, there is a big audience there for them. So there is I get from that point of view, but I do think that you're cannibalizing another team to do it, and that there are perhaps other places you could have placed this squad. Also, the big question mark there is, since New Zealand Rugby have made all the announcements, is this actually a New Zealand Rugby Pacifica side, or are there some independent people actually trying to run this? As far as I can tell, they don't have any. They don't have any media person, or I've not heard. The only person that we've kind of heard that's officially linked with this is I've gone blank to his name now. We'll just scroll down. Really proud.
Paul, while you're doing that, I just want to say
Brian Williams. So Brian Williams is the only person, and he is the patron of it. He's not actually a kind of an active kind of member.
Paul, just want to quickly jump in there. Just immediately looking at the squads, there's a name in there that stands out for us, and he's a friend of the show. But congratulations to Dwayne Pulatobao, who turned out for Tasman this year, making the side. So we'll be wrapped for Dwayne, and we'll definitely be keen to catch up with him at some stage and maybe talk about his experience either pre or post.
No, absolutely. I've been in touch with him this week, but he was too busy to come on the show in preparation for the final against Auckland. So, we will definitely get him on and have a chat with him before the end of the year. He's on there. And if you look at this team, one of the things I discussed at the weekend when I was at the Auckland game with a couple of the other journos was saying that they should have a or they could potentially have a team put together and play some exhibition games next year during, say the Mitre 10 Cup or whatever, saying that, hey, some of the they can have some of the Super Rugby side players, and this. They're like, no, they can't Super Rugby side players. That's the whole point. Is they're not taking players from other Super Rugby teams. Well, let's have a quick look at the team that they've just got then. Daniel Leonard-Brown, well, yeah, he's definitely a Super Rugby player. Kauli Tuoti is. Apasia is. Makeli too. Who on this list isn't a Super Rugby player? I think is more the question rather than who is.
Yeah, there's a few unknowns there, and if we look at that forward pack, Alamanda Motuga from counties Manukau, that's sort of a name that doesn't quite spring up at us. Also, we sort of look down the list. Somebody Penny Fennell from Waikato, one of the locks. I don't think they're contracted players, and I don't think Zane Capelli is a contracted player from Bay of Plenty. So yeah, it's a case of who hasn't got a contract as opposed to who's a contracted player.
Yeah, exactly. And even the first one you mentioned there, he's test capped, so he's actually with that one star there. some of the players are, if they've got 2 stars, for those of you who are watching rather than listening, pardon me, that means there are 7 caps players. So, look, yeah, it's there are some interesting players. A couple of interesting ones there. I mean, Simon Hughes says, why is Josh Ioane in Moana Pacifica? This team should only be for Pacific Island eligible players. Well, if you look at this side, as we've just said, a lot of them are eligible, but there's also an awful lot here who would take an All Blacks cap if they could get it. They've already said that Josh Ioane would not be. This is probably the only time he'll be playing for the squad. And it's more a matter of who is available at the moment. And I'm not sure that the number 10s of either Samoa or Tonga are available for this game, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say with the thing with Josh Ioane, he's got a Samoan father, Maori mother as well, which basically means he's eligible for either a Pacific Island team, or he can be available for New Zealand Māori as well. In fact, I'm actually quite rapt that he's made himself available for the Moana Pacific side. It gives them some real quality in that first 5 spot.
Archie does make the point there. We've complained about the All Blacks removing players from NPC. Why would we want another team doing that? Or even maybe include Moana Pacifica in the Mitre 10 Cup next year. Give them a slot. That would be another way to give them some sort of build-up ahead of Super Rugby, because we've seen already that teams that come in absolutely raw, such as the Sunwolves and Jaguares, they take time to become competitive, right? The Jaguares made it. The Sunwolves never did, unfortunately. That's because the Sunwolves basically rebuilt every year. So if we do want this side to be competitive as quickly as possible, then one of the things is they're going to need games and a build up to it. One of the good things that, and you mentioned Major League Rugby before, one of the good things that Major League Rugby has done is that teams on the whole, now not all of them have done, they quite often have an exhibition season before they actually go live and have their real season. Now, is it the exact same squad? Not necessarily. No, it's not. But it does mean that all their backroom staff get used to the fact of running an organisation and running a rugby team and organising travel and organising training and organising all the things you have to organise. It's not just the players you have to sort out. It's also all the backroom staff, all the admin people as well. And that's something that could be helped by having an exhibition season or being included in the NPC next year.
I guess, Paul, as an exercise, if we were looking at a starting 15, looking at the forwards, I guess in terms of a front row, I would imagine you'd be looking at Lenny Upasai as a starting hooker, maybe the starting props, Daniel Leonard-Brown, and actually no, I'll back the truck up again. You've got Samasoni Takiaho as well if you want a really dynamic hooker. And I think in terms of starting props, boy, you've got some choices there. Sione Mafilio, I would imagine, would be a starter. He would probably anchor that loose head side. But you've also got Michael Alalotoa as well, who's the big man from Manawatu, who'd anchor the right hand side. So that would be a pretty handy sort of front row with plenty of size. Locks, I suppose, Gerard.
Well, you're looking at you've got Daniel Leonard-Brown and Matunga coming off the bench. So yeah, again, 2 guys, a Super Rugby guy and an international. That's not. You've already mentioned 2 quality hookers as well. So Samasoni can probably come off the bench and give the mobility that he brings. Yep. Then into locks. And
into your locks, I think Gerard Kelly Tuioti, who impressed me with Harbour this year, despite where they finished on the table. I would imagine he'd be one of your starting locks. And we saw Natoya Koi during Super Rugby take his opportunities with the Chiefs as well, and I think he's been pretty impressive for Wellington, and that's probably your 2 starting locks. And but handy to have the promising Sami Penny Finau from Waikato there. So yeah, it looks like they've got the bases covered, Paul, in that type 5.
Yeah, and Nazi Manu obviously brings experience. So Akula had a really good Super Rugby campaign. Who's going to be the other back rower? But yeah, look, that is going to be a competitive pack. No, certainly.
Yeah, no question. I just look around. Probably I'm just looking for maybe somebody who could be an experienced 7. I suppose you could start with Nasi Manu at 8. You'd want to have Marino Michele too as your number 6, and then in terms of number 7, I suppose you'd have to probably select Zane Capelli, who's really more of a tight forward, more of a number 6 than he is a number 7. So I suppose you'd probably go with Capelli as your 3, and maybe Sawakula off the bench, or you could start with Sawakula ahead of Nasi Manu. So once again, some good options.
Yeah, definitely options there. Coming into the backs then, and clearly we're looking at Fakatava and Dwayne Poliativo are your 2 halfbacks. Quite well. Whoever starts and comes off the bench, I think doesn't really matter. Number 10, Josh Ioane or Stephen Perifetta into those positions. Looking at a back 3, or looking at in the centres, you've got Vince Arso. I'm trying to think who you'd play at 12.
I just sort of look at the options they've got available there. I like Fatuli Paia from Tasman. He's big, he's direct. I think that's the way you go, and you'd basically have him there with Asor. I think those 2 would be your combination in midfield, Paul.
Yep, and then back 3, Moriarty, Lester Fangauku. You've also got Nana Satoro. And that's so those 3 are the names that jump out to me as to your back 3. That would be my I guess my back 3, and then you're gonna have probably a test cap player or a sevens cap player coming off the bench.
Crazy. Well, I mean to say, your wingers are probably Rayasi and Lester Nuku, and probably Etienne Nana Satoro at fullback, or you've got the option of Stephen Perifetta if you want a more traditional or kicking game. It's a case of who you leave out, and there's of course Johnny Musseleye there as well if you want a bit of power off the bench. Good grief, that's just crazy.
Now, one of the questions that's coming in the live chat, and a couple of people have asked it. One, Ashwin's asked it on Facebook, and Simon's asked it on YouTube, is who's paying for the team? Good question, folks. Very good question. As I've already said, we've got a patron, but we have no CEO, we have no owner, we have no COO, we have no HR, we have no media, we have nothing else in the back office named at all. We have got 2 coaches named, one of whom is I would expect to be one of them. So each Super Rugby franchise has 2 coaches that are paid for by New Zealand Rugby. And for the Blues, I would expect that Umanga was the second person after I've gone blank as the head coach's name for the Blues. So
Tom Coventry, I think, has joined. Tom Coventry and Ben Afiaki have joined Tana Umanga, I believe.
Okay. I was going to say that they've because it's so Tana Umanga, and then also the ex-Highlanders head coach who has just stepped down. So another guy who is probably still on New Zealand Rugby payroll. So you're looking at basically the coaching staff. At least half of it is probably is on New Zealand Rugby payroll coming into this. Which is kind of interesting, because one of the comments that was made about this was that Counties Manukau was supposed to be helping with the coaching side of it, and I've not really seen that in any of the names that have been announced. It does seem to be New Zealand Rugby people who are making the decisions around this team at the moment. Will anybody who has been announced as part of this be involved with it in 2022 when it goes a Super Rugby franchise? Possibly no. to be blunt with you.
Mm.
And there's a whole bunch of players here. So Dwayne Poliativo has been very, very clear to us that he's got a 3-year contract with Utah Warriors. So he's still got another 2 years on that to go. So he won't be available. So I mean, for example, so I think a lot of these players will have other contracts already in place, and the coaches the same as well. So we'll have to wait and see as to. This is more a Barbarians team with the label on it. Does this bear any resemblance to what we'll see in 2022? I don't think so. This is just to give. This is more a marketing exercise and to give the Maori All Blacks a game more than anything else. I think, if we're going to be honest about it. Yes, actually, at least half of the coaching thing is coming from the Blues. Yeah, it was always going to be part of the Blues setup. Thank you. Aaron Major is the ex-Highlanders and ex-Leicester coach, Leicester Tigers coach that's joined them. I say Aaron Major, head coach for the Highlanders. He was under New Zealand rugby contract. I wouldn't be surprised if he still is, and it's running. And he's got a couple months left, and hence why he's helping to fill in here. So yes. Yeah, Simon says he's more confidence in Fiji putting a Super Rugby team out. We'll have to wait and see how that all pans out. So, do you want to have a quick look at the Maori All Blacks team?
Yes, if it's named, Paul, if it's up.
It has just been put up. We have 8 new caps in the 24-man squad that Clayton McMillan has named. And if you're wondering why I'm talking, it's because I'm bringing it up right now, so we can have a look at it. So let me just switch it, change the screen I'm sharing, and I will bring up the Maori All Black squad. So. Just to take us through it then, so in the props, we have Josh
Honeck, yep.
Corey Rackety Stones, who you might have heard of, Stephen,
yes.
Marcel Resina, and Timothy Williams being the new cap. I'm guessing that's what the stars next to the names mean. At hooker, Ash Dixon, unsurprisingly, and Kurt Eklund, who's had a great season, so that makes a lot of sense there. Only only 2 locks have been named in Selby Rickett and Walker Laurie. So we've got to say one of these loose forwards is probably going to come off the bench and have to fill in there. Billy Harmon, Reed Pinsett, Fetu Douglas, Ethan Roots is the new guy there, and Liam Messam. Wow. The old boy is back for another game at this level, which is great. In the halfbacks, Bryn Hall and Triple T. First 5'8", Terry Black and Fletcher Smith. Good combo there. All 3 of the midfielders are new. Billy Proctor, Ramake Pohipi, and Quinta Paya in the midfields there. So, some real young talent, but boy, oh boy, that's going to be a bit raw. And then outside back, Sean Wainui, Sean Stevenson, Joanna Lowe, and Caleb Trask in there. Interesting, Caleb Trask is being named as an outside back. Obviously, he's been playing 15 for Bay of Plenty, but also can play 10 as well. So, interesting selections there. I would expect either Caleb Trask or Fletcher Smith to not be involved, in all honesty, because I think they both can cover each other's place. So I think you have one of those 2 on the bench with the Terry Black starting. So I think out of the backs, that's who you're going to drop. Amongst the forwards, well, all 4 props, both hookers, both locks, all have to play. and pretty much all the loose forwards as well. Because the one player that's going to miss out is either going to be Fletcher Smith or Caleb Trask out of this 24. Clayton McMillan and Roger Randall are going to team up as the coaches yet again for this one. So what do you think of the squad?
Yeah, just when you look through the names, I think pretty predictable at the end of the day, Paul.
On the whole, I think Liam Nesson will be a surprise to see him come back. It's nice to see him back, but I say a bit of a surprise to see him back. But as you say, all the other players, there's no one to complain about and say, "Oh my word, why is he being picked?" It's. I mean, a couple of names we won't know so well is perhaps from the Canterbury in Williams and Bohipi. But apart from that,
well, I do know a little bit about Tamaiti Williams from Canterbury. He's ex-Whangarei boys. Very, very big, strong young man, but I think he's probably only maybe 19 or 20, so only very, very young in the scheme of things. Of course, Marcel, Renato and Potirakati Stones have been around the New Zealand Māori team before. Of course, Josh Honeck comes in with Tyrell Lomax away with the All Blacks.
Yeah, I mean, Honeck has obviously been involved before because he hasn't got a star next to his name. Aaron said, is it a benefit match for Liam Messon?
Probably.
So I guess the difference between this side and the other side is this side's probably a bit younger than the Pacifica side, maybe, particularly in the backs there. It's going to be interesting to see how they that midfield pairing is going to be really interesting, I think, with the lack of experience between those players. I don't know if Billy Proctor and Quince Pye played at under 20s together or not. So they may have played together before, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, they are very young through that midfield, but boy, whoever laces their boots up for that game, they're going to have their hands full with that Pacific Island team, no matter what happens.
And you look at this and go, actually, sure, there are perhaps 8 players, but that means that are new. But that means that all the rest have all played together before. So it's not quite the Barbarians team that the Pacifica team are going to be. These guys will have some combinations that are used to playing with each other. When was the last time the Maori played big time opposition? It would have been the home and away games against Fiji in the Rugby World Cup last year.
Yeah, it was home and away.
No Punavai, Stephen? Nocturnal Rights asks.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I'm not 100% sure if he is eligible for the New Zealand Māori team. We'd have to look into that.
Yeah, for that one.
And listen, I was going to say not a bad little reward too for the Hawke's Bay Magpies as well. I'm counting probably looks like about three players in the forward pack, and of course Jonah Lowe in the outside backs making the squad.
And they're all guys who've been involved before, which is interesting. None of them are fresh in there. But I think it's good reward for players like Kurt Eklund, who's had a really good season. He's the one that really jumps out. Proctor and Tapia, two guys who have got big futures ahead of them if they can stay injury free. So it'll be really good experience for them in this one. With Fletcher Smith and Caleb Trask also. I guess my only thought is that who's the guy that's going overseas? Is it Fletcher Smith? No, Fletcher Smith is staying, isn't it? It's I think who's signed overseas. It's the other young fly half who actually was playing for the Chiefs that I get mixed up with Fletcher Smith. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The Hawke's Bay and Chiefs player.
Tian Falcon. Yeah.
Tian Falcon, that's it. Thank you. I always get Fletcher and Tian Falcon mixed up. All these players, as far as I'm aware, I think are sticking around in New Zealand Rugby as well. A media pass for this game between the Maori All Blacks and the
Pacific.
On a Pacific. So, and also I'll also be told about all the press events in the week leading up to it. So look out for a lot of little videos and reports from those in the week leading up to this game. Really looking forward to my first exposure to New Zealand Rugby, the media machine, which will either be a fun or an extremely exacerbating experience.
Oh, very good.
Cool. I think that so we've covered off on all the topics I had lined up for this evening. Stephen, any final things you want to talk about?
No, that's pretty much it. Of course, looking forward to the two finals this weekend. I'll be at Eden Park on Saturday for the final between Auckland and Tasman. Don't forget, it's a free entry, so get along there nice and early, folks. So you can pick your spot. And of course, Friday night the Magpies host the mighty Taniwha. I would have been keen to have got the boys' prediction for that game on Saturday, but listen, if I was picking it, I'd probably be picking the two. I think maybe the two home sides is the safe way to go. I think that Auckland-Tasman game, though, might be a lot closer than what people think.
For me, the Hawke's Bay should win that one against Northern, I'm afraid, Stephen. They have been the standout side in the championship all season. Whereas the Auckland Tasman one, boy oh boy, that is going to be a real tight game. I know that Auckland will be absolutely up for this game. The emotion in that squad at the moment, I think, if anything, might overflow, and that'll be my main concern for Auckland, is that they just get too emotional in the build up to this game. But I think Auckland have got a real. Whereas Tasman, I think, perhaps have got a bit more of a calmness about them at the moment, even if they aren't performing to the same levels they were last season.
Yeah, it's fair to say Paul knew we're at the Waikato Auckland game on the weekend. Auckland, I think over the last probably 3 weeks have been nowhere near their best, so they've got to recapture that again if they're to knock over the current reigning champions.
Yeah, Simon asked, do I think Auckland will ever charge for a final? Look, if they make it there so 2 years ago, it was the first time that they'd had hosted a final in well over a decade, and the council stood up and paid for it. This year, I believe Barfoot and Thompson have decided that they're going to step up and pay for the final. One of the key sponsors for Auckland. So, will Auckland ever charge for it? Look, if they have to pay themselves, yes, they'll charge for it. If they can get someone else to pay for it and let everyone else in free, then absolutely they will. So yes, but Archon says not the council. Really, the council aren't paying for it this year, but I think they did. I think they were. They gave like free use of the. Archon thinks it was Mike Greener Holmes last time, 3 years ago. Okay, I'm happy to stand corrected on that one. But yeah, basically, Simon, the reason that that Auckland have been able to do it for free is that other people have stood up and paid for it, not because they have. I can't see them paying for it. I think if they had to pay for themselves, they would be selling tickets. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. for the morning sports briefing. As you've heard, Stephen will be at the Mitre 10 Cup Premiership final this weekend, so keep an eye on our Facebook page for post-match interviews from that game. That one between Auckland and the Tasman, I think it's going to be an absolute cracker. And I'll be putting out my Mitre 10 Cup predictions on nzsportradio.com tomorrow. So have a look out for those. I've already put my predictions up for the All Blacks the Pumas versus the All Blacks. I think it's the Pumas home game in Australia this weekend. And also for the Autumn Nations Cup. So that's all available on NZ Sports Radio. Thank you very much, Stephen, for joining me this evening.
Yep, no problems.